When Alpine spent big bucks to buy Pierre Gasly out of his Red Bull deal to fill the void left by the loss of both Fernando Alonso and Oscar Piastri in 2023, it inevitably set up a tough decision for the future. That's because pairing Gasly with old rival Esteban Ocon was never going to be sustainable in the long term, given the historic enmity between the two. Gasly won the battle, recently agreeing a new deal to stay with the team for 2025 and beyond. As for Ocon, Alpine announced after his controversial collision with Gasly on the first lap of the Monaco Grand Prix that they would part company at the end of 2024. Ocon says that he's long wanted a new challenge and to write his own story, and is genuinely happy to have linked up with Haas for 2025. But Alpine was already leaning towards keeping Gasly and dropping Ocon from the start of the season. That's significant given he'd been at the team since 2020 and had been likened to Alain Prost by then Alpine CEO Laurent Rossi after a deal was agreed to keep Ocon at the team until the end of 2024. So how did Gasly win the war and make the team his own? Well, it's a fascinating question because in terms of on-track performances, Ocon and Gasly have been one of the most evenly matched driver pairings on the grid over the past 18 months. Statistically, it's even marginally in Ocon's favour. Their qualifying records are similar, and in the 36 races they've been together at Alpine, it's dead level. However, Ocon has a slender advantage in his favour, last year of just 8 thousandths of a second on average where a fair comparison can be made, while this year he's on average 63 thousandths of a second quicker in dry conditions. It's a similar story in terms of results. Gasly has scored marginally more points, 68 to Ocon's 64, although in the 26 races when both have been classified finishers, Ocon has been ahead 61.5% of the time, and he's been ahead almost 60% of the laps they have raced together. The waters are muddied by the fact that at times this year Alpine has been all over the place. Gasly had a strong run in the middle phase of the first half of the year, but had a terrible series of races coming into the summer break. He couldn't even start the British Grand Prix after a gearbox problem struck on the formation lap. Alpine then struggled badly in Hungary, and at Spa he complained of a cooling problem that cost him pace. That said, by then the frustrations of the season did appear to have got to him, and Ocon was the stronger performer over the weekend. This means that from a pure performance perspective there's no case to have dropped Ocon, and if you were going to choose one or the other, it's almost a coin toss between the two, but with the overall statistics slightly favouring Ocon. So there's more to it than just performance. When Gasly first drove an Alpine Formula 1 car in the post-season Abu Dhabi test in 2022, he was delighted. He said he couldn't have hoped for a better first day. The reality of life with Alpine hasn't lived up to that encouraging start, but you can argue that Gasly has made a success of it simply by the fact he's usurped Ocon. That was always the number one objective because in this cutthroat business, the first person you must beat is your teammate. Despite their history, there haven't been many on-track flashpoints. They collided in Australia early last year, and then there was Ocon's injudicious first-lap lunge on Gasly at Monaco that led to Alpine announcing he would leave the team at the end of the season, but the battle has mainly played out off-track. Gasly has managed to make his case as much through how he works with the team behind the scenes as he has with his on-track performance. He's always been diligent behind the scenes. At times, during his unsuccessful half-season with Red Bull Racing in 2019, he was felt by some in the team to be guilty of trying to change things too much in search of perfection. But the 28-year-old proved he's learned from that experience with the more mature approach he's taken over the past 18 months at Alpine. He talks of the process as coming quite naturally. Rather than pushing too hard inside the team early on and grasping for easy solutions as he perhaps did at Red Bull, Gasly took a more strategic approach. The first part of that was observing and understanding the team. Then it was about gradually making efforts to modify the way of working on his side of the garage. That coincided in August last year with major changes in the team, thanks to the departure of team principal Otmar Safnauer and sporting director Alan Permane. New sporting director Julian Rouse was also keen on evolving the way the team worked, and that fitted in well with Gasly's desire to make subtle changes. That's about improving feedback and also gains made in terms of how the team prepared its setups for race weekends with simulator work. Gasly also experimented with setup ideas that at times helped steer the team's direction. The upshot was that in the first half of the season, Gasly and Ocon were evenly matched, but after the break, Gasly was the more impressive of the two, albeit not by an overwhelming margin. By this stage of the year, Gasly felt he was fully embedded in the team. He had a car that responded well to his default style of late braking and then aggressive rotation on turn-in, however it also gave him the stability he needed in the middle of the corner to make that work. Things haven't continued seamlessly this year, but on good weekends Gasly has been excellent, notably in Spain where he qualified well and finished 9th. Crucially, the prevailing feeling over the winter at Alpine was that Gasly was the right horse to back, with talk of Ocon already being set for the exit. So it was no surprise that despite the up and down performance of team, drivers and car, Gasly was kept on and Ocon allowed to leave. Given Ocon had been at Alpine for so long, Gasly knew very well that he also had to do what he could to ensure he showed himself to be the better team player. While at times Ocon's reputation for being divisive is overplayed, he is someone who fights his corner with determination. That's a quality that played a key role in his improbable path to F1, given his background that meant only success at every level could keep him on the ladder. So it's part of his character. But at times, he has rubbed people up the wrong way within the team. That was something Gasly capitalised on. Gasly showed his confidence in the firm foundation that he's created when he spoke publicly about the efforts he's gone to in keeping the relationship with Ocon on an even keel in an interview with F1's Beyond the Grid podcast. It's important to note that it was only his side of the story, but he referred to the need to manage Esteban and manage the way we interact, take my distance. The implication was clear that he was the one motivated to make the team work and that he was therefore the key player in the Gasly-Ocon alliance working. Regardless of the truth of that, it was certainly seen that way by some, but not all, internally. Gasly extols the qualities of the team in terms of communication as being a key to his integration. By contrast, Ocon has complained about the communication. He says that for a long time, drivers gave feedback but that nothing came back, and that the drivers weren't listened to as they should have been. He said that after he knew he was leaving, so he was probably being honest rather than incendiary, but it also points to the fact that after 5 years of battling in a team that was going nowhere, Ocon inevitably became frustrated. So perhaps it was inevitable he would be the one to lose out. And given how all over the place the team has been in his 5 years there, he hardly seems disappointed to be out. Given Alpine's struggles and the relentless bad news, you could ask whether Gasly becoming the main man at Alpine really is the prize he would have hoped for. Leadership changes, most recently with Flavio Briatore joining as executive advisor and Oliver Oakes coming in as team principal, are happening too regularly. The plan to close Renault's F1 engine project at Viry-Châtillon in France means Alpine intends to become a Mercedes customer team, and despite its insistence to the contrary, every decision being made seems to point towards a future sale. On track, things started horrendously this year, but there is at least some hope through the progress that's turned the car from the slowest in F1 to sometimes qualifying in Q3 and picking up regular 9th and 10th places. That has been achieved through an aggressive weight reduction program that has got the car down to the right level. There have also been aerodynamic gains, although the main improvement was just through the team taking some pragmatic decisions to make the best out of what it had and come up with a car that it was easier to get the most out of. There was also a major upgrade package that was introduced at Spa that included a new engine cover. These were the first developments that new technical director David Sanchez had the chance to have some influence on. And Sanchez's arrival has encouraged Gasly, as he believes they are on a similar wavelength when it comes to where Alpine needs to improve. Gasly even says that Sanchez coming in played a part in his decision to stay on. Making real progress with Alpine and helping it to get back to the level it should be at, which is at the very least at the front of the midfield, is Gasly's next challenge. Given the stuttering progress of a team that has gone nowhere for the past 5 years or so, that could be a far more difficult task to succeed in than making Alpine his team.